Hello, my name's Christian Barker and this is 99co's Agent Success Stories. Today I'm speaking with Beatrice Ng from ERA. Welcome, Beatrice.
Thank you, Christian, for having me.
Beatrice, how long have you been in the industry and what was it that made you decide to become a real estate agent?
Having to challenge myself in being a self-employed company, because being self-employed, you needed a lot of discipline, and I'm also passionate to see luxuries property, so it get me very excited to see all the properties in Singapore. So that is where I started my interest to be a property agent.
And Beatrice, when did you discover that this was your calling? When did you decide that this was the career that you wanted to follow for the rest of your life?
I was in this industry for a good 12 years, and then I do see my friends are in the industry and doing very well. So she's like a role model to me. So I'm like, why not just give it a try?
Beatrice, if there was a lesser known tip or piece of investment advice that you were to give to potential property investors, what would that be? Something that's a bit out of the ordinary.
You have to buy high in order to sell higher. Alright, so in Singapore, we do not have like cheap properties, or may probably undervalued these days. Yeah. So to me, it's like property market are on the rising end because of manpower issues, material costs. That's where the developer actually needs to bid for the land, which more expensive price in terms of per square foot pricing. My property wealth creations thoughts is about buying from the developer itself and to resell it in the next 8 to 10 years. So the longer you hold, and definitely the price will appreciate, but that will depend on a few attributes. So it could be like nearer to a very reputable school within 1 kilometer, or probably near to transportations. So it has to be convenience. I'm not saying like all properties in Singapore sure makes money, but it really depends on what is your needs and wants. So we need to understand clients' needs before we can narrow into it.
Okay, yeah. Makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Now, when you're catering to foreign investors and expats, what are some of the challenges there, such as cultural barriers, language barriers that you need to overcome? And what are some of the other difficulties that you need to be conscious of?
I think for Singapore-wise, we are pretty international. So we do speak like English, which I think most of the countries do speak English as well. But for the Chinese, right, it's also very common for us because our second language is still Chinese. So in terms of language barrier, I don't see there's any issues here. But what I do see issues is about foreigner buyers. The recent cooling measures has already increased the additional buyer stamp duty of 60%. Yeah. So previously it was just 30, so it's just doubled up. Yeah. Right? So we do see foreigner investors are not coming in for a while only. I strongly believe that in Singapore property market, this will pick up. But they have to get used to it.
So you're finding that the increase in ABSD has had quite a cooling effect on foreigners purchasing property in Singapore.
That's right. And I do see that only a very short period of time. The reason being because Singapore is a Southeast Asia country, and moreover, we are core of the region whereby people who are in Malaysia, Indonesia, even in Australia, they do want to buy property in Singapore because I think Singapore economy is more stable. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so Beatrice, we were just talking about expats and foreigners, particularly from the expat point of view. How have the rapidly rising rents that we've seen recently affected that market for expats coming in or relocating within Singapore?
I would say this will affect the expat very drastically because I do have tenants who needs to pay the rent more than 50% or even to 80% from their previous renter. So what they got to do is that because they are still staying in Singapore for their work and things like that, and then they will have to right sizing.
Okay.
Yes, so they need to right size to actually iron out on where is the location they want it to be and the proper size they want it to have.
So you're seeing a lot of these expats having to make compromises because
of the price increment. But the good news is I felt like the rental now is getting slower and prices are trying to get into the stability right now. Okay. Yep. So I would see in the next few months, probably prices for rental would be stable, but generally it won't be as low as previous rental.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Good news for renters, perhaps not as good news for landlords.
Yes, that's right. I mean, there is one period of time whereby a year or two, landlord get very high rental, and there was like shortage of houses for rent at the time. So once you put out on the market, it quick snap up very quickly.
Yeah.
And that is where people are more willing to pay for the rent. But now I do see there's a lot of TOP projects, meaning to say like developer, they are actually ready to pass on the keys to all of the buyers, and that is where they can actually rent it out. So there are more supply now rather than demand.
As we all know, real estate transactions and real estate decisions in general can be very emotionally driven and very, very high in tension and stress. How do you go about ensuring that your clients maintain a level head, make the right decisions, and don't get carried away emotionally and do the wrong thing?
For houses, right, it's going to be one of their most expensive purchase in their life. So it's either houses, property, or cars, right? So to me, I have to understand what they actually want in the property, right? Is it they are buying for own stay? That means they need a bigger unit. And in terms of location, are they going to stay near to the parents or near to school? So all these factors we actually need to discuss before we actually carry on to their property purchase. But whereas for another group of people, they're just buying for property investment. So they want to see the ROI. So we need to know why are they buying the property in the first place, and then to actually ask them more questions. What is their exit plan? I think a lot of people in the market, they just want to buy, right? But they don't think about like in the next 10 to 20 years, what is their exit plan? So it is for us as a property trusted wealth creation advisor to advise them accordingly.
And how do you keep people calm? Is it by remaining calm yourself?
Yes, so we need to show them a lot of charts and stats over the years, how the market has gone through, and then what are the pitfalls. I give you an example. Previously, when we have COVID-19, a lot of people felt like the property market will crash. But in the end, it turned out to be a booming. Isn't it? Yeah, because people will foresee like recessions, the pandemic will causes property prices to decline. But in 2020, we do see a very steep increase of prices. That is because developer themselves need to hire for a lot of manpower works. So there are a lot of material costs that causes the high increase of expenses.
So Beatrice, negotiations are a core role for any good real estate agent. What is one of the more challenging negotiations that you've engaged in, and what tactics or strategies did you engage in order to create a successful result?
We usually represent sellers or buyer. So representing seller at the point in time, right? We need to let the seller know what are the market transactions and what is so unique about their property that we can sell higher for them. So when the buyer comes, we do actually tell the buyer the unique side of the property. It's not so much on the prices, it's not so much on the location. I'm sure they all know about this, but this particular unit itself, why is it so special and how does it stand out as compared to the rest? So that is how I actually try to do the negotiation. And I would say that it's all about the how can you let the buyer digest the price. I think a lot of time when the price asking is too high, they cannot digest the sum. But when you can tell them like what is good about the property, right, the unique selling point, then they probably will actually find that, oh, that's right. I mean, for example, Riviera is like a condo whereby it's very near to Singapore River. So those unit that faces the Singapore River is going to be very prestige, right? How many people can own a property at this Singapore River? So that is something that we as a property agent better advise the buyer on such unique points.
Is a successful negotiation one where both parties win, where both parties end up happy and neither ends up feeling that they lost out or came second best?
Yes, that's right. That's why for both parties, you need to explain to them why the buyer derived in certain price and how the seller is arriving at the asking price. And from there, we try to match and meet in between for the deal to actually close.
How do you go about remaining up to date with market trends and movements in the industry, new technologies, etc.?
Recently, there's a lot of policy change. As a real estate agent, you have to be very updated to the market because the client will definitely ask you, like, what are the recent changes? And if you do see the trend, the government will announce the market policy at 12 a.m. in the morning, where everyone is sleeping and they will just give surprises everyone. And the next morning, a lot of clients will actually text you. Your clients, it can be your agents, and then just ask you, hey, how does this property market changes in terms of the policy will affect them? So if you don't stay up to the market policy, you will not be above the rest, you see? Yeah, because a lot of times when they come up with policy, I'm sure they have the reason behind it. And one thing I liked about my company in ERA is that the following day, they will create a seminar for agents and seminars for consumer to better understand why and how this policy has changed.
Okay, so lots of late nights for you, staying up at midnight and finding out the news, what's going to happen the next day.
Yes.
Beatrice, as an expert in marketing, what are some of the more out of the ordinary or innovative methods that you've used to list and sell a property?
I would say it's more on video marketing and touching on towards your network, because a lot of times I think property agent, they will use property portals to market the property, which is very effective. But from today's market, I think we got to stand out to be in social media, in the platform whereby TikToks, Facebook, Instagram, to actually market the property. The more viewership you have, the more people will actually get interested in the property, and you wouldn't know, they'll just call you up to view the property and eventually they buy the property.
So are we seeing more investment and more attention paid to the quality of photography and videos that are done in properties in Singapore?
Yes. We do see a lot of people who engage videographers, videos, because now we are all in the social media world. If you don't touch on social media world, it's very difficult to increase the viewership as well. Yeah.
If you were giving advice to someone who was in the position you were in 12 or 13 years ago, just making a start in the industry, what advice would you give to that young person who's trying to build a career in real estate?
Work as hard as you can. Because you are young. Young is actually something that is very precious in life, okay? And to me, it's like just go out there, find more clients and be hardworking.
Fantastic. Beatrice, this has been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for all of your insights
today.
Thank
you for having me.
My pleasure.